From the Palace at Uncle Studios in beautiful Southern California, welcome to another edition of WorkCom Matters, the central location for all your workers' compensation, employment, and labor law matters. My name is Steve Appel, and I'll be your host for the next hour with some talk, news, and hopefully some answers about WorkCom Matters. Thanks for being part of the show, and if you can break away from your WorkCom Matters, feel free to give us a call and clue us in. With your questions, comments, and or concerns. The phone number worldwide, 818-357-4120. You can be old school and send a fax to 818-475-1437. You can even send me an email at wcexaminer@aol.com. With me in studio, my right-hand man, Mike Zima, the best-dressed man in workers' compensation, Ted Durden, my protege, Robert Ozeron. Scott Walton's on the board, working the technical difficulties out. And back at WorkCom Central, making sure the whole damn show goes right, is Jake Paris. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of WorkCom Matters. This is election results and potentially hodgepodge. As you know, last week we had Daniel Brin, Assembly candidate for the 45th Assembly District, on, and we have the results from the special election from last night. Voting is completed, and yesterday's special elections for the California State Assembly, and final results are expected to be certified April 12th. If any candidate wins more than half of the vote, they win outright. Otherwise, the top two finishers in each race advance to the June runoff. The candidates are vying to replace three male lawmakers who resigned last year. Assemblymen Bocanera and Dabanaugh quit among sexual harassment allegations, and Assemblyman Ridley Thomas left citing health problems. Democrat Sidney, I'm going to screw up this pronunciation, Sidney Kamlager, has a 68% lead in the 54th Assembly District race to replace former Assemblyman Sebastian Ridley Thomas. So Kamlager is probably going to be the next Assembly person for the 54th District. Democrat Luz Rivas was in the lead as of last checking for the 39th Assembly District with 41% of the vote to replace former Assemblyman Raul Bocanera. And in the election for the 45th Assembly District, which Daniel Brin was running and is my district, to replace former Assemblyman Matt Dabanaugh, who resigned in disgrace among sexual harassment allegations, Democrat Jesse Gabriel leads with 32%. An early sampling of all random selected precincts indicates the turnout was between 8 and 11%, and all three districts, according to the Los Angeles County Registrar's Office. My name is Steve Appel. You're listening to WorkCom Matters. We're brought to you by A1 Law and Santa Monica Tickets. If you want your number one computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys than any other system on the planet, give me a call at 818-357-4120 for your no-strings-attached money-back guarantee, $1 a day, A1 Law. And if you want those hard-to-get, front-row, sold-out concert, sports, theater tickets, give our buddy Brian a call at Santa Monica Tickets, 310-395-8587. So during last week's show, we got into quite a heated discussion over some comments that Mr. Brin made regarding the Second Amendment. And then I'm up later on after the show, I think over the weekend, Friday or Saturday, and it's about 11:30 at night, so I'm not as level-headed as I would normally be during the day or at the show, and I see Robert posting some comments on his Facebook, and I'm going to read you those comments right now. We posted the show, and Robert's comments to the show are as follows. He doesn't say, Steve, what a great show. Steve, what great content. Steve, this is going to make the show better.
In my defense, first, all of our prior shows I thought were great. I just didn't comment on it, and I just want to say that now.
And let me say that I thought last week's show clearly has almost 3 times as many hits as any other show. So controversy breeds hits. But Scott, the production value was great and the content was good because we clearly got both sides of the issue. And here are Robert's comments. The episode where we bring on a guest that doesn't believe in the Second Amendment and is running for political office, a.k.a. the guest who insults anyone who's taken an oath to protect the Constitution. And then I responded, Robert, actually, this guest said on the show he did not want to change a word of the Second Amendment. Then Robert responds, his interpretation is that the Second Amendment does not apply to private individuals. Is he a lawyer? No. Instead, his background is journalism, education in the Bay Area. For the record, Daniel also said on the show he agreed with Robert. He does not believe that the framers of the Constitution had the Second Amendment apply to individuals. Okay? Furthermore, his interpretation is nothing but an affront to the people who take an oath to defend the Constitution. People like this are more dangerous than any terrorist. They are cancer that eats at our society from the inside, looking to erode the very freedoms that allowed them to espouse their ignorant opinion in the first place. I responded, Robert, is this really you or someone else posting like you? And Robert's response was, who else would it be? I'm the only person on this panel or any one of our guests that took an oath to defend the Constitution and continues to take it seriously.
That was pointed at John at Munich.
Well, John's not at the panel right now.
No,
I know
but
me, Mike, and Ted are, and I've been here for every show.
So, boss.
Well, let me finish.
We have a little more.
I'm not done yet. Let me finish. And continues to take it seriously. Daniel Brin should move to Europe. It's an insult to think anyone like that represents America. Go ahead.
Well, why don't I tell you how I really feel, right? So, actually, I want to change my opinion slightly from that. And actually, it's what Ted said before we started. It's actually an insult to every citizen, not just to any person who took an oath. I'm sorry that I I had my attorney hat on. It is actually an insult to every citizen who takes, the Constitution seriously, who thinks that it protects freedom, who thinks it's probably the best document ever written, and if they're not religious, outside the Bible. So to think that Daniel Brin would sit there and say, well, in my interpretation, and I'm like, well, are you a lawyer? No, I have an education in journalism from the Bay Area. But in my interpretation, I'm going to take your guns away. If I could. If you had the power, he would.
He didn't say that.
Oh, yes, he did. He said he doesn't believe in the ownership of private individual firearms.
No, what he said is that he did not believe that the Second Amendment applies to individuals. He then deferred to the 10th Amendment, which leaves it to the states, and he said he would not change a word of the Second Amendment, and he believes in a citizen's right to own a gun.
But you know what? I think, first of all, Robert, I got to say that when I heard what was written, it sounded like you were nuts, okay? But I forgot what I was going to say, but I really wanted to say that.
Because I'm not crazy, I know. But let me...
Exactly.
Well, put it this way. I do think it's an insult to the Constitution to have people like that running for office. It should be concerning. Our freedoms are important. You see, every other country, before anything bad happens, the government starts to oppress their people, they take their guns away. Well, our founders knew this.
We discussed that.
Yes, our founders knew. Yes, and it's a very reasonable interpretation to say how much the limit is, but right?
Steve,
we're not opposed to gun control here.
Excuse me 1 second. I mean, I would have to agree with Robert that I think that if that gentleman was administered sodium pentothal, he would say that he wants to take people's guns away.
I mean, I could read that so quick.
And I would agree with you 100% on that, because of the fact that when he expressed the opinion that he doesn't believe that's what the framers of the Constitution intended, he's actually expressing his own opinion. That's exactly what he's doing.
But he's entitled to his opinion.
And you're absolutely right. He most certainly is. But I would have grave concern with anybody in a governmental position that believes that he thinks that
there's a lot of them.
Well, Ted, then you're going to have a problem with 4 justices of the United States Supreme Court, because in the Heller decision, which was 2009, where the United States Supreme Court in Heller ruled in a 5-4 decision that was authored by Justice Scalia that the Second Amendment does apply to the individual. However, 4 justices dissented. Now, because dissented, thank you. Now, because 4 U.S. Supreme Court justices dissented and did not believe that the Second Amendment applies to individuals, are those justices cancer? Should those justices leave these good United States and go to Europe?
If I may, Steve, the Supreme Court decides things in closed chambers out of a 9-person panel. They know the result, okay? There will always be a dissent written in such an important issue as the Second Amendment, but the result was, foregone. It was a foregone conclusion.
The result agreed with your opinion.
No, the result agreed with the Constitution. Everyone knows this. It's not for hunting. It's not for home protection.
No,
it's for stop for tyranny. It's a freedom protector. You should stop calling it a gun, start calling it a freedom protector, because that's what the founders intended.
Well, that's what it was, because, again, it's like we talked about this in one of the earlier podcasts, where the purpose of the Second Amendment
is to protect the First Amendment.
Right, absolutely. That, and it was for a citizen militia. That's exactly what it was for, to defend and protect our homes and protect ourselves and to protect our families.
However, at the time it was written, women could not own property rights and women could not vote. So
and we still had slavery. We were not perfect people, okay? We want to be better, but the ideas.
That's right. And
ideas
blacks
about,
had no rights at all. They were property.
But look, in history, the founders looked back. First of all, slavery was a hot issue at the founding of the nation, if you know that they were thinking about trying to abolish slavery upon the Declaration of Independence, but decided that it was going to split the colonies, and it did subsequently, right? So there was a business decision to punt on that issue at the time. Now,
I don't know if it so much was a business decision, because even if I look at it in the context of when Lincoln was in office, and the reason that he chose slavery as a hot issue was, one, although he was offended by it, he saw it as a way of affecting the Southern economy. And that's why he did it, because slavery was the backbone of the Southern economy. You take away the labor, then you take away their ability to produce, to manufacture. So it was an excellent decision that he made at that point to accomplish 2 feats. And that was to get rid of slavery and to break the backbone of the Southern states.
Yeah, and that was a different political time. It's not the unification of the United States we have now. There was a lot of tension between the states. So Lincoln, he's on the mountain for a reason. Okay,
right.
So
and I agree with you on the fact that the Constitution, the way it was written, it's not perfect. Not by any stretch, but that's why we do have checks and balances, and that's what democracy in American society is all about.
And that is why, in my opinion, with all due respect, the Constitution is perfect, because it's a living, breathing, ever-changing document. I'm really not so much concerned about what the framers intended back then. I'm more concerned about how we apply it now.
And I agree with you 100%. That is the beauty and the perfection of the Constitution.
Majesty.
It really and truly is. It really and truly is. And I agree with Steve 100%, because it is living and breathing, because it morphs and changes all the time. It really and truly does.
And why do we at WorkCom Matters love perfection so much? Because we obtain it so rarely.
Well, you know what they say, you can't achieve perfection, but if you chase it, you might just achieve excellence, and we could all be excellent.
I couldn't have said it better than
Absolutely.
that. This is WorkCom Matters. My name is Steve Appel. We're brought to you by A1 Law and Santa Monica Tickets. If you need the #1 computer management system used by more California workers' compensation attorneys than any other system on the planet, give me a call at 818-357-4120 for your no-strings-attached, money-back guaranteed $1 a day A1 Law. And if you want those hard-to-get, sold-out concerts, sports, theater tickets, even front row, give our buddy Brian a call at Santa Monica Tickets, 310-395-8587. Coming back full circle, going back to the election and the assembly people that resigned because of sexual harassment. We've got John Scalia on the show, and he is halfway around the world in Germany, and he's still a licensed attorney after 45 years, and he's going to comment on sexual harassment.
Hi, this is John with the WorkComp International Report from Munich. As we have learned from recent events, your Facebook profile reveals a lot more about you than you may think. However, even without Cambridge Analytica scouring your Facebook profile for information, it does in fact reveal a lot about you. If you go to my Facebook page, you'll see my friends listed. And among my friends are two women who used to be my secretary. They were my secretary when they were both young. In fact, they were barely over 20. In one case, I was actually under 30, and in the other, I was in my 40s. Both of them were extremely attractive and single. And in both cases, I was single. Obviously, they're Facebook friends of mine because I never tried to abuse my position as their supervisor. In one case, I was the supervisor. In another case, I was both the supervisor and employer. I credit that to my mom, who was a single mother, who was the sole breadwinner and rule maker in the house, and who created an atmosphere of mutual respect. She never abused her authority and never created in me the attitude that because you were in charge, you should be a dictator. Most sexual harassment, according to psychologists, is more related to power than sex. And I think that what we've learned in recent weeks and months shows that. What exactly is sexual harassment? Well, the definition of sexual harassment, which is mainly used today, was created by the agency I used to work for, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Their definition, which is used in most states, is as follows: unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature constitute sexual harassment when 1. Submission to such conduct is made either explicitly or implicitly a term or condition of an individual's employment. 2. Submission to or rejection of such conduct by an individual is used as the basis for employment decisions affecting such individuals. Or 3. Such conduct has the purpose or effect of unreasonably interfering with an individual's work performance or creating an intimidating, hostile, or offensive working environment. If you look at the allegations against Mr. Harvey Weinstein, whose case created the Me Too movement, you will see that it pretty much fits the textbook definition of sexual harassment. Yes, I must point out he denies it, but he's been accused of sexual harassment by a legion of women. And apparently, same with our erstwhile president. Now, I spent most of my career doing workers' compensation, but it was a long career. So I asked myself, did I have any cases involving sexual harassment? And in fact, I did. Not only did I have them, but they also illustrate the change in societal attitudes. The first case I could recall came from a major film studio, and it involved an executive. The case was filed by his secretary who'd had a long affair with him. The studio knew it, and our marching orders were settle the case. We didn't have to besmirch the plaintiff. We didn't have to attack her character or anything. They just wanted us to engage in settlement discussion with her and get the case to go away because they liked the guy and they wanted him to keep doing his job. Well, that was a long, long time ago, well over 30 years ago. And you can see societal attitudes, hopefully, and they have changed. The second case I could remember was a young woman who had worked as a model. She was very attractive and had been carrying on an affair with the department chair in a hospital. He was not a doctor. He was on the administrative end. The problem was that the affair became noticed by all the other employees, and they complained about it. So this is a long time after the executive in the film studio case. And as a result of change in attitudes, the employer investigated the allegations. They confirmed the allegations. And as a result, they fired the executive. The girl's claim did not involve a sexual relationship claim. So when I took her deposition, I wanted to insulate my client from liability. And so I was very clear. I got her to specifically deny any affair, despite the fact the employer had confirmed it. And she obviously had $1 million judgment just waiting for her. All she had to do was say, yes, I had the affair. I have no direct knowledge as to why she denied it, although I do have a suspicion. She was young and she was married to a young Marine, and I suspect that she chose breathing over $1 million. Lastly, I had a case involving something called a Skelly hearing. A Skelly hearing is created by the California Supreme Court in Skelly v. State Personnel Board, 15 Cal 3rd 194. If you look it up, it will say, well, it's an administrative proceeding designed to let the plaintiff know what the allegations are to protect their rights, et cetera, et cetera. If you want my opinion, all you have to do is go to your dictionary and look up kangaroo court. The people who sit in, quote, judgment on the Skelly hearing are basically employees from other county agencies who have no knowledge of the law and no knowledge of the facts other than what they've been told. My then girlfriend was a lawyer and had a calendar conflict, asked me to handle the Skelly hearing. I said, well, this is a county. I mean, it was not LA County. I said, I can't believe that this goes on. I said, so I want to interview your client before I agree to handle the case. So I did interview her. And the facts were outrageous. I mean, they were textbook. I mean, incredible. And so I said, yeah, I will represent her. And in fact, I got the committee, the Skelly hearing people, not to do what they usually do, which is to rubber stamp the recommendation, but to say, well, we don't have enough evidence. We have to kick it over for more investigation. So essentially, I won at the hearing. Well, that's a brief description of various cases I've had involving sexual discrimination, sexual harassment during my career, and the societal change towards them. It is an unjust application of power. It needs to be stopped, and hopefully we are on the way to stopping it. That's the View from Munich this week.
And thank you very much, John. Appreciate your comments. Always pleasure to have you contributing to the show. We've got our first news story. He's my right-hand man. He keeps me in check and out of trouble about 90% of the time, Mr. Mike Zima.
Thank you. A woman suspected of shooting 3 people yesterday at YouTube headquarters before killing herself was furious with the company because it had stopped paying her for videos she posted on YouTube, according to her father. Her father also said the family received a call from Mountain View Police around 2 a.m. Tuesday saying they found her sleeping in a car. He said he warned them she might be headed to YouTube because she hated the company. Writing in Persian on her Instagram account, the woman said, quote, I think I am doing a great job. I have never fallen in love and have never gotten married. I have no physical and psychological diseases, but I live on a planet that is full of injustice and diseases, end quote. And this is me, yeah, like her.
And I was going to say, and I'm glad that one of those injustices and diseases is dead and will be buried 6 feet into the planet.
This was a true wacko. I did just a little bit of research on her background.
And we purposely did not give the names of her or dad. Did you want to comment on the background or...
No, except that when I looked at and read what I looked at and read, she just looked like a complete wacko. And if the police received a call saying that they're worried she might be going to YouTube and they see her, the police see her 30, 25 miles away at 2 a.m., why did they not at least search her for weapons?
Good point. Robert's got the next news story, which, in my mind, applies clearly to everybody at the table, everybody listening, and potentially everybody around the world. What can I say? I've known him for 5.5 years. He never ceases to amaze me. My protege, Mr. Attorney Robert Ozeron.
Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg will testify before Congress April 11th next week, according to members of the House Oversight Committee. Zuckerberg will field questions about Facebook's use and protection of user data in wake of the Cambridge Analytica scandal, according to House Energy and Commerce Committee Chairman Greg Walden, a Republican from Oregon, and Ranking Member Frank Pallone, a Democrat from New Jersey. This hearing will be an important opportunity to shed light on critical consumer data privacy issues and help all Americans better understand what happens to their personal information online. Walden and Pallone Jr. said in a statement, "We appreciate Mr. Zuckerberg's willingness to testify before the committee, and we look forward to him answering our questions." Relatedly, Facebook has apparently allowed you through an update to see how you're labeled according to their data analytics. And they've either labeled you for political purposes as very liberal, moderate, conservative, or very conservative. If any users want to go, they can check out this setting on their Facebook homepage. You go to settings, account settings, ads, your information, your categories, U.S. politics. Okay, I'll repeat that. You go to your settings page, go to the account settings tab. So there's a tab within that. Click advertisements, click your information, click your categories, and then click U.S. politics. I did it for myself. Oddly enough, I'm liberal. So hi guys, I'm liberal here.
Right. Now here's the question I have for all of you. Should there be any type of regulation that prevents Facebook from doing whatever they want with the information that you give them?
There's got to be disclosure at least.
Well, there
that
is
they're doing it.
There is disclosure. Facebook has never denied that they use the information you put on Facebook for advertising and analytic purposes. I have always, even before Facebook, when I put out an email, I always thought, Steve, be careful what you write because that is out there forever. When I first signed up on Facebook, I presumed that anything and everything I put on Facebook is out there forever. Should there be regulation on how Facebook uses the information that you voluntarily give them?
Well, they offer you the privacy option, right? This is a free service after all, right? No one's paying for this.
Well, that's irrelevant, I think.
Well, it shows that they give you the option. They say, hey, this is our terms of service. Would you like to sign up? You agree. Everybody's agreed.
So the disclosure's there.
I mean, there could be a competitor that arises that will protect data more, and maybe they'll get more market share. But that hasn't happened. People want to give it willingly, and then they seem to be shocked that all their information is now out there.
So you do just a second, Ed. So you do or do not agree that there should be regulation on how Facebook uses the information you voluntarily give them?
Of course, I agree that there should be regulation in regards to any private data, and there already is. There's HIPAA regulations. There's Social Security authorizations. I think there should be guidelines for data online as well, but it should fall within the same guidelines we currently have.
Ted?
And I agree. I don't think it requires any further regulation than is already there. I mean, the reality is that we can't regulate ourselves to death. We really can't, any more than you can regulate morality. You just can't do that. Sometimes you just have to use good common sense, because when you're dealing with the internet, as I often put to my kids, you're dealing with the ethosphere. Anything that you put out there is going to be out there forever.
Now, I know what a biosphere is. What's an ethosphere?
Well, no, that's just out there into the verse,
universe.
Out into the ethos,
out into
right?
space.
So rather than a closed-off biosphere, it's an open, wide ethosphere.
Absolutely.
Got it. Okay, please continue. Please continue.
So it's like, when you engage in websites like that, then you have to understand there's always going to be certain risk. It just is. It's no different than when you post something on YouTube. It's out there forever because it's going to get downloaded 1 million times, 10,000 times, how many ever times it is, and then it's just going to be out there. And it's the same thing with Facebook. They share data, they share information, and anybody that does not think that their information is being shared, they're stupid.
But how do you guys think Zuckerberg is going to do if he goes on Capitol Hill and gives testimony? Do you think he's going to look like the deer in the headlights, like that CNN interview?
Doubt it.
I wonder if he's going to go alone or with an attorney. And if he goes with the attorney, is the attorney going to instruct him not to answer any questions? I personally hope he shows up by him without an attorney and answers every single question. Full disclosure.
It's interesting. Mark Zuckerberg is really, really smart. So I don't think he's going to get trapped by anybody on Capitol Hill, especially since we've seen who's running for Congress on this show, okay? If they catch Mark Zuckerberg, I got to tell you, I'm just going to move out. I got to go somewhere where things make sense, okay? Because there's no way people of that caliber, now I know I've never met, the people who are really on Capitol Hill, maybe they're a different quality, but I doubt that Mark Zuckerberg is going to do anything bad. I mean, and his stock price has already taken a hit. So he's actually trying to do this to get out in front of it. It's all the investors that are upset at him. So this is going to be a good thing, I think.
And I agree it's going to be a good thing. However, I don't think that's the way Congress is looking at it. It's time for our first musical break, and I think the old people of Congress are going to want to slap Zuckerberg's wrist. I think they're going to want to embarrass him. I think they are basically going to want to say, bad boys, you get spanked.
You're not supposed to do that. You know you're not allowed to. If you seem to get some kind of kick out of doing what you're not allowed to, you deliberately defy the rules, 'cause the laws of hell not fools. You know that bad boys get spanked. You can make but don't touch, but no, you can't resist. Don't you ever think about the consequences? Guys like you never do. That's the kind of stuff that boys are made out of. That's the kind of stuff that girls are made out of. You know, bad boys get spanked. Bad boys get spanked. You don't listen to the asshole. Don't be a punk all your life. Someone's gonna sort you out. They'll try to make a man out of you. Now say yes or say no, sir. Say yes, ma'am, say no, ma'am. You know that bad boys get spanked. Bad boys get spanked. Get spanked. Get spanked. Ooh. Come here, get. Bad boy. Get spanked. Come here. Get spanked.
Yeah, all I can say is words of wisdom to Mark Zuckerberg. Congress is going to want to embarrass you a little, so just tell the truth, be forthright, answer all those questions, and I don't think you'll have any problems. You might even enjoy it.
Hey, boss, you think it'll be like one of those things where it's the congressman just sitting there talking for 10 minutes and Zuckerberg sitting in a chair listening, and at
Could
the end,
be.
at the end he
Absolutely.
goes, uh-huh. And then they go, wow, he really got him. He really got him. You know what I mean?
I think it's going to be one of the most watched, seen, and retweeted videos we have seen in a long time. My name is Steve Appel. You're listening to WorkCom Matters. We're brought to you by A1 Law and Santa Monica Tickets. If you want the #1 computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys than any other system on the planet, give me a call. at 818-357-4120 for your no-strings-attached money-back guarantee, $1 a day, A1 Law. And if you want those hard-to-get, sold-out concert, sports, theater tickets, even front row, give our buddy Brian a call at Santa Monica Tickets, 310-395-8587. I think Ted has the next news story. I've known him for over 20 years. I'm the one that originally coined the phrase best dressed man in workers' compensation. And of course, he sounds like Barry White. Without further ado, Mr. Ted Durden. And yes, I know it's a pleasure to be here. Of course it is.
Absolutely. You have a great panel of guys here, let me tell you. All right, the latest news story is Christine Baker, Director of the Department of Industrial Relations, has announced her immediate retirement. According to her personal statement below, Ms. Baker is retiring from the Department of Industrial Relations after 34 years. It has been my greatest honor to serve the governor and the people of California with you. I'm extremely proud of what we have accomplished.
I mean, she's been doing it for 34 years. Maybe she just wanted to retire. I doubt she was forced out. I really don't know. I mean, it is what it is.
I don't know. She might have been because
she didn't give any notice. I mean, it was an immediate retirement notice. I mean, it wasn't like a month's notice or anything.
Could it be health issues?
Well, I don't know if it's so much health issues, but if I recall correctly, she was the one that was behind a lot of the stays that have happened with a lot of the lien claimants, where a lot of their rights to due process have been violated. She was the one that was pushing really, really hard, if I recall correctly, for them not to be able to pursue their liens in court so that they would not be able to finance their defenses.
And in fact, who's got that story about the 8 providers that
I got that one.
Robert, go ahead and read that
All right.
story. We'll just take
The Division of Workers' Compensation has suspended 8 more medical providers from participating in the California workers' compensation system, bringing the total number of providers suspended to 242. To see the entire site or list, go to the DWC website of all the suspended providers that are listed there.
Yeah, because we don't just give the names anymore. It's I think it's a waste of time. And I think I have our last DWC story. The Division of Workers' Compensation has posted proposed interpreter fee schedule regulations to its online forum where members of the public may review and comment on the proposals. The draft regulations include an objective, uniform fee structure based on the federal court system, reduction in double billing fees for the multiple interpretations during the same time slot, detailed invoice information and billing codes, an emphasis on the use of qualified interpreters, requirements clarifying the selection and arrangement of interpreters, new credentialing identification requirements. DWC Forums webpage under current forums is where you can get the information. And I took a look at it. The current Superior Court fee for an interpreter for a half day is about $225. Most of the interpreters at the Van Nuys board charge $195. This new fee structure allows your first half-day appearance at $255. And then if an interpreter does more than one appearance in the same half day, it then gets cut by 75% down to like $155 or $165. It also establishes a fee schedule for a provisionally certified interpreter, and I don't know if the requirement is to work underneath the certified interpreter. I was looking this over at the same time I was reading over Robert's Facebook, so I didn't read it word for word. But again, these are proposed regulations, and if you want to comment, you can go to the format. Ted, you've represented interpreters many times like I have. Many of the judges recognize that when it comes to interpreting at hearing, they are absolutely necessary. When it comes to medical legals, they are absolutely necessary. And it's in the labor code, folks. If there is any approved or necessary treatment, even where the doc is only charging you for a PR2 at $12.50, you got to pay that $90 interpreting fee.
You have to. Now, the one thing that I'm curious about with this new regulation is how are they going to monitor how many cases that interpreter is handling per
That's
day.
exactly what I was thinking.
No. And it's an excellent question, because that's one of the things that I read in there. They are going to make the interpreters, at least at a hearing, part of that, the rule that's there, the proposed reg, says they have to state on the record, like at a hearing, how many hearings they've done that day.
Okay,
Under penalty of perjury?
To who?
And who pays the 100% and who pay? You can imagine the co-defendants fighting about that. Zenith fighting with State Farm. You pay the 100%. I'm hearing number 2. I pay 75%.
That's an
It's going to be like
point.
watching somebody eat their young.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, because insurance companies already don't communicate a lot. To think that they're somehow going to talk to each other about who's going to pay the balance of the interpreter, it's not feasible. I don't see how it could be executed.
Ted, you just reminded me of the football movie Any Given Sunday, where Charlton Heston, he's the commissioner of the league. He's speaking to the owner of the team. She was played by Cameron Diaz, and as Charlton Heston is walking away, the comment is, quote, "That woman would eat her young," close quote. I love it.
Well, the insurance companies did that with Open Rating, X number of decades ago, and they undercut each other. And
Right.
But you know what? It would be nice to have a fee schedule and have the interpreters paid appropriately and timely, so they don't, complain to the applicant attorneys that they can't help us out. Sometimes, don't get me wrong, I'd like to get more treatment on lien, especially since I see so many denied claims and cases. Well, not cases, claims. I would like to see the pendulum swing a little bit back to the left. We've gone a little bit too much, and now we are stifling the rights of injured workers. We're not getting them treatment. They're not getting interpreters. You know how many times it's hard for us to get a doctor's appointment, and then the doctor will cancel because we don't have an interpreter? So these are things that a client who's injured at the job, and you tell them, well, your doctor's appointment was canceled, there's no certified interpreter there, they won't do it on lien. It was hard enough to find us the doctor on lien because your claim's denied. And a lot of these claims are denied, and they shouldn't be. So I'd like to see a little bit of a change. A breath of fresh air in the system would be nice.
Here's my problem. Not so much what you were talking about, but I'm going to go back to what I said about how do you have interpreters tracked. That gets to be a very slippery slope, and that's why. Why don't they do the same thing to defense attorneys when they show up on more than one case? Why don't they do that?
Oh, they don't want to do
because,
that.
No, I'll tell you why. It's a good question. Because the labor code and the judges do not have jurisdiction over what defense attorneys are paid.
Okay, but they have jurisdiction on how an interpreter bills the cases that they appear on?
They have jurisdiction over how much and when an interpreter should get paid, because it's a benefit to the injured worker. Defense attorneys and all their services, investigators, interpreters, are not benefits to the injured worker. The applicant's deposition, the applicant attorney's fee, the applicant's interpreter, the medical treatment, those are all benefits to the applicant, which all fall under the jurisdiction of the WCAB.
Yeah, but I think Ted's point's well taken, that the same people proposing all of these trackings and people who are trying to stifle the rights of these lien claimants and of the injured workers underneath, through that. These are the insurance companies. Let's call them what they are.
Yeah, but you can't. I'm not.
Apparently, the judges can only stop you from ripping off the insurance company if you're the injured worker, not the attorney.
Yeah, but Robert, there is a reason why an average 5710 fee is $400 to $450 an hour, and the average defense attorney is getting paid between $150 and $175 an hour.
Yeah, and they're running templates out there, and they're billing full hours.
But my point is, you can't compare the two. One has nothing to do with the other.
I'm simply saying that there seems to be inequality of where we're looking for fraud in this system. Okay, we're seeming to.
It's always been that way, though,
and it doesn't seem right. Okay, it doesn't seem right. It seems like they're targeting the weakest, the injured workers and the interpreters. When the lawyers out there for the defense are triple billing and they're really just playing some sort of game on their phone.
There's plenty of monkey business to go around.
Well, I look at it. I look at it even more simply. I just look at it as a steady erosion of the rights of the injured worker, and they're doing anything that they can to impact that and modify that. That's what I see. Even like what you were saying, Steve, as far as the defendants are concerned. My point is, you're right. The board has jurisdiction over how much an interpreter can charge. But now they want to regulate how they handle their appearances. You know, they want to regulate how much they can charge on a sliding scale when they have more than one case. That's like saying, okay, if you have a doctor that's operating, well, you charge me full bore for the first hour, but after that, yeah, you got to give me a 50% cut, then a 25% cut, then a 10% cut. The service is the same. The quality of the service is the same. It doesn't matter how many cases they have to handle, the service is the same.
Well, maybe it's time that we have a certified interpreter come on the show and tell us what he or she thinks. It's time for another musical break. My name is Steve Appel. You're listening to Work Comp Matters. We're brought to you by A1 Law. If you want the #1 computer management system used by more workers' compensation attorneys than any other system on the planet, give me a call at 818-357-4120 for your no-strings-attached money-back guarantee, $1 a day, A1 Law. And if you want those hard-to-get, sold-out, even front row concert sports theater tickets, give our buddy Brian a call at Santa Monica Tickets, 310-395-8587. We'll be back with the last segment of Work Comp Matters after this musical break.
Well, you can't turn him into a company man. You can't turn him into a whore. And the boys upstairs just don't understand anymore. Well, the top brass don't like him talking so much, and he won't play what they say to play. And he don't wanna change what don't need to change. And there goes the last DJ who plays what he wants to play and says what he wants to say. Hey, hey, hey. And there goes your freedom of choice. There goes the last human voice. And there goes the last DJ. Well, some folks say they're gonna hang him so high, 'cause you just can't do what he did. There's some things you just can't put in the minds of those kids. As we celebrate mediocrity, all the boys upstairs wanna see how much you'll pay for what you used to get for free. And there goes the last DJ who plays what he wants to play and says what he wants to say. Hey, hey, hey. And there goes your freedom of choice. And there goes the last human voice. And there goes the last DJ. Down in Mexico, and sometimes it'll kinda come in, and I'll bust a move and remember how it was back then. And there goes the last DJ who plays what he wants to play and says what he wants to say. Hey, hey, hey. And there goes your freedom of choice. There goes the last human voice. And there goes the last DJ.
Tom Petty on Work Comp Matters. We're brought to you by A1 Law and Santa Monica Tickets. My name is Steve Appel. Mike, do you have the next news story?
Armand Arabian, a former Los Angeles prosecutor and judge who rose through the ranks to serve on the California Supreme Court, died in his sleep last week at his home in the San Fernando Valley. Nancy Arabian, Armand's wife of more than 5 decades, died 16 months ago.
And Mike and I both worked with Anne Arabian. She was a defense attorney.
Yes.
And she was a total sweetheart.
Very nice person, yes?
And never gravy trained her dad or her uncle. Never gravy trained the judge.
Never.
Never at all. Speaking of judges, California Judge Elihu Burl has ruled that coffee sellers will have to post ominous warnings in California because each cup contains a chemical linked to cancer. The Council for Education and Research on Toxics wanted the coffee industry to remove, and I'm going to blow this, acrylamide from its processing, like potato chip makers did when it sued them years ago, or disclose the possible risk in signs or labels. The industry led by Starbucks Corporation said the level of chemical in coffee isn't harmful and any risks are outweighed by the benefits.
So Starbucks says it's good for you. This reminds me of like the cigarette, like the tobacco companies. You know what I'm talking about? This is so funny. History, if you don't study it, you're doomed to repeat it. It's true.
Of course, McDonald's lost that $1 million case where they had to put on the outside of their coffee cup that drinking this is hot and could burn.
They had a history of that. They knew about it. If you see the documentary, in fact, they've had prior serious burns, and they were knowingly or recklessly heating the coffee up and disregarding the other lawsuits that had happened. They were just settling them quiet and not creating any type of protocol.
Okay.
That was the reason. And then the person was really badly burned very quickly upon receipt of the beverage in their car.
Right.
It's an interesting case because this is one they teach you in law school, actually.
I knew you knew it. So.
Yeah, they talk about it. They talk about, well, how many of you know the law? The McDonald's case, right? It's a joke amongst people on the street. Well, here you go. Right, it's this, and you're looking at it, you go, oh man, if I was on the jury, I'd give that much too. That was bad. That was real bad. But it doesn't matter what the truth is at the end of the trial. The truth is that McDonald's has a lot of money, and they've created a national joke out of being sued. Like it's not serious. Like the person's damages weren't really there. When in reality, we all know it went to trial, and 12 people got together and thought, oh no, McDonald's, you really went bad. Okay, so it just shows you. Illusion, perception of what's out there in public.
Perception is reality.
Yeah, and what the truth is. That's what they say. A trial is a search for the truth, right? I know people who have actually been to court feel like that's far from it. Right?
Yeah, a lot of people that go to court say a courtroom is the last place you go for the truth.
Because they want to say their opinions, and a lot of the time a judge won't even let you say it. Right. And it's so frustrating that you waited to get your day in court.
It all depends on the evidence that the judge lets in.
Correct, because the judge is the gatekeeper of this search for the truth. And it's their opinion which matters, which their search for the truth, what they think is balanced, right? The fact that this criminal may have had a prior history, for everyone else, that's important, right? But we know that the judge will never let somebody hear that because they're going to convict him for his past crimes and not what he allegedly did in the crime they're at trial for. So these perceptions that we all have is very interesting because you see it here in the panel with all of us, right?
Sure.
I didn't think that you, boss, were going to support Mr. Brin's interpretation on the Second Amendment. I thought right away when he started talking that, oh man, Steve's going to give it to him. And then you said you support him?
No.
I was sitting in my chair rolling around in here.
I supported him for his candidacy for office.
All right. Well, I supported his bus ride home, okay?
No.
That was funny, Robert.
You've got the next news story.
Sure. Insurance companies have received more than 2,000 insurance claims, totaling more than $421 million in losses from the deadly Montecito, California mudslide that destroyed or damaged more than 400 homes and businesses and killed 21 people, the California Department of Insurance reported. The total number of claims included more than $387 million in residential property losses, more than $27.2 million in commercial property, and roughly $2.5 million in personal and commercial auto property. Of course, the lives are most important.
And I didn't have time to research it, but Xavier Becerra came out yesterday and said that there's a clause where a lot of the insurance companies were denying the mud flow because the homeowners did not have flood insurance. And Xavier Becerra came out and said there's a clause that allows pardon me, the insurance companies should indemnify the homeowners because the mud was caused by the fires, not because of the subsequent rain.
Wow, that's an interesting question, isn't it?
And then I'll get you the clause.
What do you guys think? I mean, if you're going to say that there's a flood exclusion and the water damage is not allowed to be covered, well, technically it's the water, right? Or was it the prior? This is going to be a causal legal question, but for question,
well,
right?
yes, it's an if not but for the fires,
Correct.
the rain would not have caused the mud to flow. And again, when most people think of flood insurance, I'm thinking water. But it's not the water that destroyed the homes. It's the mud.
But,
Right.
I mean, as far as the scientific cause, they would say water and mudslide is equivalent, but fire and mudslides are different, right? But it's one causing the other.
I think what they're saying
is
is
cause and effect.
I gotta say, this might be one that shocks you if it's given to a judge, because acts of God are sometimes not foreseeable, according to but-for tests. They will cut off a but-for test, often, right? Like
Okay.
Unless you're insured for the act of God.
possibly, just like a criminal act will cut off the but-for test, right? But for this and that, but then someone interceded with an active criminal act that will end it.
Well, let me ask you a question. So are you saying that the rain is considered the act of God? So let me play devil's advocate then. If the fire was set by an arsonist, that's not an act of God. So if the cause and effect is an arsonist set the fire and then rain followed after, but if not for the fire burning away the brush, then the mud would not have flowed.
Well,
I think I stand corrected. I gotta be honest. I like that point. That it was a fire. It was a human element in there.
Let's get our fact pattern now more specific. It's been proven that majority, if not all, of the fires were caused by the electrical company not properly clearing the brush away from the electrical lines.
So I think we all know what we want. We
Okay.
want all the homeowners to be covered. That's
Of
what we all
course,
want.
absolutely.
But it is an interesting question of how we're going to get there. Because, first of all, if it is the brush fires caused by the electrical lines, well, the insurance companies who cover these claims, aren't they going to turn around and sue right back?
They're going to subrogate
Yeah.
against the power company.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely. That's exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah, so it's kind of unbelievable that they would sit here and deny the claims the first time, right? Because they would rather not even pay the money out at all.
Well, it's a lot easier to deny a claim against a person than have to subrogate against a big billion-dollar power company.
Yeah, it's easier to pick on the weak, right? Does it seem
Exactly.
like it's easier to find fault in applicants and doctors' offices, but not in insurance companies, right? Something like that. So I think we see that everywhere. Selective targeting based on what you think you could win versus what's right.
And that is a beautiful statement to close, my boy. I love that statement. That was awesome because I'm all about what's right. And I know what's right is sitting around this table, that we can disagree. I can feel on the weekend at 11:30 at night like Robert socked me in the gut.
Sorry about that.
No, he can say here during a recording show he couldn't believe that I was agreeing with our guest or whatever. And then when we all come full circle in the end, we respect everybody's right to say what they want to say. And that's not only right, it's a beautiful thing. It's one of the reasons why I continue to do this show, and I am really proud to do this. For my right-hand man who keeps me in check and out of trouble at least 90% of the time, Mr. Mike Zima, the best-dressed man in workers' compensation, Mr. Ted Durden, my protege, attorney who took the special oath, the only one at the table, Robert Ozeron, Scott Walton of Uncle Studio, taking care of all the technical difficulties, John Scalia, halfway around the world, 45-year attorney, and of course, all the good people back at WorkComp Central who still continue to approve and support this project, including but not limited to Leaf File and Jake Paris. My name is Steve Appel. We'll see you again next week for another edition of Work Comp Matters.